Mr. Jun, welcome to the Rich Equation podcast.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited to be here. We've been trying to coordinate a recording for a while.
I'm glad we're able to do it. I'm glad we're able to do it here in person.
Face to face.
Yeah, instead of online. Best. It's just much better, much more interactive, much more intimate. Thank you for showing me your place. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, all the audience can see is the curtain.
Yeah, it's curtain, but you're putting in windows here. You're doing some real renovations. It's very nice.
Well, I'm excited for this conversation. I think today the audience is pretty lucky. Jun is a really talented guy. He's an incredible father. You're going to get a window into his life. He has a podcast called Dad Smarter, Not Harder.
That's right.
And just riffing at kids' birthday parties. Both of our kids go to the same school. We ended up talking like, wait, you have a podcast? I have a podcast?
Oh my goodness.
What are you doing in the world? You're an entrepreneur? So we just immediately connected, and I'm just excited to get into all of it.
Let's do it. Very
so
happy
what's
to
the
do it.
purpose of life, Jun? Let's
What's the
just
purpose of
start
life?
hot and heavy.
I was having a conversation with my friend last week just about this. And I want to tell you first what he told me and then what I think. So he was asked, his name's Yukai, he's a business partner of mine, what is the purpose of life? And his immediate reaction is to get better. And I thought about this. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean just to get better? He means, well, there's obviously value in being content and being happy with what you have. And absolutely valuable. However, he feels that in addition to that, your goal should be to get better every single day of your life in every aspect that you do. Whether that's in your business, whether that's in your family, in your parenting, in the way you eat, in the way you exercise, in the way you sleep. Because that is the human condition. The human condition is we are built, our bodies, our brains are built to do work, to do something. We can't just sit around and try to consume information and be entertained on Twitter, on TikTok, on Facebook. I don't know who uses Facebook, Instagram, because we're basically now just becoming a consumer of information, and we can't just do that. We need to actually have an output, and that's what he means by becoming better every single day.
I love that.
It doesn't necessarily mean you have to start a business. Some people don't want to start a business. That's perfectly fine, but maybe you can get better in the way you teach your kids. You can get better in the way you communicate. That really resonated with me, and I think about some of my very close friends who we can talk about. I'm not going to name them. There's very, very dear close friends of mine. We went to elementary school together, we went to high school together, and our lives have diverged quite greatly. It's like, why have I, and we can talk about my background, why have I been able to reach a certain measurement of success? Hey, I'm not Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Maybe give me 10 years. No, maybe give me 20. Give me 20 years and I'll be maybe a fraction of that. But I have very close friends who haven't been able to even, for example, they're still living at home with their parents, some of them.
Yeah.
And what is the big difference? Some big differences. Well, parenting. Parenting is a big part of it. How did their parents parent versus my parents? Second is outlook on your life. A lot of them have been focused on how do I make myself happy? And which is good. Look, people want to be happy, yes. But the purpose of a life, so we're going back to it. The purpose of life should not be to be happy. Because what ends up happening is maybe you just play video games all day. Maybe you do drugs all day. Maybe you watch pornography all the time, which is a mind killer. We can get into that. You do these things to elevate your endorphins. It sucks your dopamine levels. I think we were talking about that. And all of a sudden, yeah, you feel good in the moment, but then it passes. And so you have a short-term gain mentally of pleasure, but long-term, you're not getting where you want to be. And so these people are missing. So maybe they were happy in certain moments, but they're missing a purpose. Why do I wake up every single day? I mean, we can talk about that. I've been talking a long time. But basically, what I'm structuring myself is to make sure that my children are also infused with knowing that they need to find their purpose, not just, I want my children to be happy. No, I want my children to have a purpose.
So let's unwind all of that. I think no, it's all great. I think this is why you can already tell why Jun and I resonate, because I think I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think that a lot of people nowadays, I'd love to ask you why you think that is. Why is it that people are chasing happiness? But even more so, why are people so afraid of hardship?
Mm-hmm.
And just a couple of days ago, actually, we interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy, presidential candidate.
Holy crap!
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that or not.
Oh my God, that's amazing! You had him. You had him on here.
I had him like 2 weeks ago. We loaded the podcast.
Yeah,
and we had him. And one of the things he said is that, and I'm going to paraphrase. Basically, he's like, victimhood is a choice. Hardship is a circumstance. So we've just in this country, we use hardship as oh my gosh, like, why am I dealing with this right now? But that's a circumstance. It's happening to you. It's maybe something you cannot control. But victimhood, that is a choice. And so we end up somehow getting to this place where, well, I just don't want to deal with all the challenges, and I just want to get to a place where I'm happy. And I think I agree with you, and maybe there's an energy there that's like, it just feels safe. And that's not the purpose of life. So why are people so caught up with being happy?
Well, first of all, I have to follow Vivek, so oh my god, oh my goodness. Okay, why are they so caught up with being happy? I think I want to change that a little bit. It's not just about caught up with being happy, but they're so obsessed or afraid of challenges.
Yeah.
They're afraid of setbacks. They're afraid of failing. Well, why is that? I mean, there can be many things. So there's this great book called The Coddling of the American Mind. Have you seen that by John Haidt, I think his name is? I will find it. I will send it to you. Fantastic book. And it talks about certain fallacies that people in our generation have been growing up with. And then also what he has been seeing the college education system is teaching their students and the children. So one of the main things is that your feelings are right. I think that's what he talks about. It's been a while since I read the book, but basically the general concept is if that you feel hurt, or if that you feel oppressed, or if you feel attacked, then that is actually correct.
True.
That is actually true, and that you need to do something to rectify that.
Right.
And then what does that lead to?
I agree with that.
So that leads to safe spaces. For example, I think in certain colleges you have certain places called safe spaces where you don't want to be challenged. So all of a sudden, let's say you and I, maybe we'll find something that we disagree on, but we can disagree on it, debate on it without feeling personally attacked.
Right.
But in the teachings of this book, it says we're teaching our children that if you feel personally attacked, or if you feel like somebody is contradicting or debating against your ideas, then your ideas are who you are and you are being attacked. So you should feel defensive, and you should not be put in a place where you have to defend yourself, that you should be safe at all times. And that's not the human condition, right? Because the human condition needs to be challenged. When we're lifting weights here, you want to lift weights and tear your muscles so that it can get bigger, you can get stronger. Same thing with the mind. If you are in your bubble and you're constantly listening to only ideas that resonate with you, with people that share your ideas, that reinforce your ideas, you're not challenging your mind to grow. And this goes back to the idea of getting better.
True.
So now we're getting to this idea of why do they want to be happy? It's because they don't want to be challenged. They don't want to have to debate. They don't want to do these things because it's hard.
It is hard.
Okay. Quick segue. Have you seen on Twitter this video of this girl, maybe 18 to 20 years old, just coming out of college, got her first job in the East Coast, and she's crying on the TikTok because she's complaining that she goes, oh my God, I can't believe it. I get on the train at 7:30, I have to commute for an hour and a half, get to my work from 9 to 5. I commute another hour and a half back home. And at 6:30, I'm so tired. I don't want to cook. How do you have a dating life? How do you do things? It's so hard. Now, now before I talk about what I think about it, she got a lot of hate and a lot of love. A lot of love from people her generation, right, Gen Z, who
align with her, agree with her,
exactly.
See her.
It's like, hey, yeah, this sucks. We shouldn't have a 4 or 5 day work week. We should have a 4 day work week, or we should have less. We shouldn't be working 8 hours. We should work less. All these things, and then you have other people like maybe old folks who are like, oh, I can't believe you're complaining all the time. No, you gotta suck it up and work hard. Okay, so these two camps. Where do I sit? And then maybe you can tell me where you sit. First and foremost, her complaints have been around from our generation. Like when I got my first job coming out of college, same thing. Commuted an hour to LA, worked there, took the train back, and it sucked. I remember so vividly. I was a corporate finance consultant. My mom was really proud of me. She was like, "Oh, Jun, you made it." She's really proud of me. And so I'm sitting there. I'm 3 months in all the training, and I don't know, director was training me on the laptop. I have to build these finance decks, and I was literally like this. I was falling asleep. It was so boring. So I have a choice. Maybe if TikTok was around then, maybe I would have complained on TikTok. I don't know. Who am I to judge this girl? She seemed really smart, really articulate. She looked up her TikTok. She has hundreds of thousands of followers. She's doing something right. Who am I to judge this girl? Because I felt the same way. I hate this. What did I do? I quit. I called up my friend Yukai, who I mentioned earlier, and I said, Yukai, quit. We're starting a company. And we said, I'm not even joking. Immediately, right? This was like 6 months or something like that after graduating, maybe 3 months after graduating. We moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Brentwood next to UCLA. We recruited some engineers. We stuffed them all into a 1-bed. So we had 5 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment. We ate Subway every single day because there was a UCLA deal, buy 2, get 1 free. We filled the fridge with Subway sandwiches, and we built technology. And that's how we got our first break, really. Anyways, the point of all that, for this young girl and for many people in Gen Z, there is no antidote or there's no easy path. You know what? I actually think 9 to 5 might be the easiest path of all. 401k, health insurance.
It's predictable.
Predictable vacations, and you have so much free time. How much do you work, right? Like, I work a lot. I think you may work a lot. We also spend a lot of time with our children. I think that resonates with us. We spend a lot of time and are very methodical in the way we parent. But many times I find my mind filled with work, and it's something that I love to do, and I hope I can pass on to my kids. But okay, I went out.
No, but like a 9 to 5,
yeah.
you're right. But the framework of a 9 to 5, you actually don't have to necessarily do that, right? You can, because I agree with you totally, is our minds are so consumed with whatever we want or allow in. For us, we consume a lot of our mind space with work, but that's okay because we enjoy that.
Yes.
I enjoy that. I'm always thinking, and people are always, just because you're not in front of a computer or you're not on your phone doesn't mean you're working. You're the moment you wake up, your mind is like, well, what can I do? And what should I do? And how about this? And how about that? And what if I call that guy? And would he help me solve that problem? And, the advice I would tell this girl actually is that I think she's actually really blessed. Because like today versus what we didn't have even 15 years ago is we didn't have podcasts. We didn't have the content you have today. You didn't have YouTube. So if you're really complaining, what are you doing on that hour and a half?
On the commute, like what are you learning?
What are you learning?
Exactly.
What are you consuming? That's 3 hours a day. You could be having a side hustle while you're sitting
100%.
with Wi-Fi on, right? Building an online business or doing. So what is it that you really want? If that's not it, right? If it's not money, then go do something else.
Yep.
If it's a relationship, then find a job that's closer to home that you could spend. So just solve the problem, work through it. But I think it's also instinctual. I think our mind, our body is used to finding a way to resist what is, right? Maybe complain. Maybe some people are instinctually, and you know this, we have to hijack that thought. It doesn't just always come naturally. It's like, oh, I want to get upset or triggered about this. Like, wait a second, here I go. I'm going to have to intentionally hijack that. I think it's a muscle.
It's a muscle you have to train. So, for example, we're here talking. When I was in school, in middle school and high school, I hated public speaking. I was so scared of it. Elementary, middle, and high school. I was so scared of it. Even after going into college, I remember I was pledging for this business fraternity called Delta Sigma Pi. And they make you do like these weird interviews. And I remember I was so nervous in interviews. And even, when I was graduating college, I was so nervous in the interviews. And literally, so many people will feel this way. And all you have to do is, it sounds so easy, right? It's just practice, repetition. Put yourself in positions where you have to talk. You have to speak. You have to present. And then inevitably
you have to get uncomfortable. Do the things you're not wanting to do.
So something I tell my children every single day, right? I ask them if they're doing something and they're not good at it, I ask them, practice makes, and they'll say, better. Like they're like programmed now. They're programmed to shout certain phrases when I ask them. But I mean, every single day, right? Practice makes better. Because we're all going to have setbacks in business, in life, in your marriage, with your kids. And can you overcome that? So your question is, why do Gen Z only want to be happy? It's because they don't want to hit those setbacks.
Yeah.
Because if you hit, so there was another thing. There's the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. Have you seen?
Yeah, of course.
So you know this. So again, so many of us are raised, and I think I had that as a kid. So many of us are raised with a fixed mindset that who you are and your intelligence level now, and if you fail, is a reflection on who you are.
Yes.
And we have to change that. That's why practice makes better is a reflection on changing things like that. Is it okay to make accidents? Yes, it's okay to make accidents.
Yeah.
Like my kid dropped a bunch of, we were in the car and she dropped all the potato chips, you know, and she's like, oh, and I'm like, is it okay to make accidents? Yes, it is, you know. So it starts from little. From little, you just let them know. And so
let it go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you're working on in business, because I think you are a really successful entrepreneur. You're scrappy as hell. You just told a great story about how that is. What are you working on, if you can share? And maybe some challenges or struggles that you're going through your entrepreneurial journey right now. Like, what's on top of your mind right
Sure. I'll talk to you about two things. So the first one I want to talk to you about is Octalysis Prime. So Octalysis Prime is
super cool, actually. I looked into it before we started recording.
So that's an educational platform that teaches people how to use gamification for their personal and professional life. So we built that off of the teachings of my co-founder there. And he teaches about using this Octalysis framework, which is a gamification framework, and how you can really use that to improve your life. So in that's many, many years old now. We have hundreds, thousands of members from across the world, and they're all being a part of this. You pay a membership to be a part of it, and you're there learning. I mean, if you're asking how do you build something like that, we can talk a little bit about that. Ultimately, I think what will help anybody who listens to this is if you want to really tailor your life to the way you want to live it.
Yep.
Right. Spend time with the kids when you want to spend time. Come over, do a podcast when you want to do a podcast. Whatever it may be. I think entrepreneurship and building your own business is ultimately the way to go. I mean, I think a lot of your viewership is going to understand that and want to be there. And this also reflects on what I want to teach my children in terms of should they go to college? Like, I have a lot of thoughts on there. Do you need to go to college to start a business? Do you need to go through all this training to start a business? My philosophy now is really real hands-on training. You have to build the business in order to get better and to grow from it. So some of the challenges are quite natural. I'm sure you felt them as well. Everyone is remote. How do you make sure that people who are on your team are motivated and still driven when you have such a remote culture? If I go into the office, I make sure that everyone's there. We're feeling it. We're there together. So how do you do it? I mean, I can give you some quick things that we do. So for example, we have daily stand-ups every morning, 15 minutes. There sometimes, depending on the time zone, some people will need an earlier time. So I'm there at 6:30 a.m. I'm there making breakfast for the kids on the call, but they see me, high energy. They're asking, do I micromanage? No, I try not to micromanage, but I am in everyone's business because it is the business and what we're trying to build and what we're trying to accomplish. And so Octalysis Prime, but that's also no, absolutely, and also with workwithme.ai. That is a project which hasn't launched yet, so I won't be talking too much about that in particular, but I can talk about how we built the team, how we raised the funding, how we brought on board the designers, the engineers, especially for people who are like, well, I can't really code. Sure, you can learn to code, but maybe that's not what your expertise and what you're the best at. So how can you find engineers, recruit engineers, get them bought into the idea, and to build a great product? Like, we can dive into things like that as well.
I love it. Let's talk about parenting, because I think that's my most exciting topic for you.
Yeah.
You have a podcast. Maybe you tell the audience a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah.
You have two beautiful little girls. You speak to them in Spanish. Both of our kids are in the same Spanish school.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, I know it's kind of a stupid question, but I've never met anyone quite as intentional about parenting as you. And you've almost framed your whole life around this topic. Tell us where that comes from. Why?
Yeah. Okay.
I know it sounds like
it's a good
dumb question.
No, it's
really
a great question. Why? So we have our first Juniper, our second Skimble. We have our first, the second one comes, and then 2020 hits, right? So COVID happens, schools closed down, I'm trying to work at home, I'm trying to raise the children at the same time, and I turn into what I feel is a bad parent. I'm moody. I can't get any work done. I can't spend time with the children. I'm just angry all the time. I'm like a moody person.
Irritable.
I'm very irritable. I was so irritable during that time. You can ask my wife. She was like, oh, I didn't want to even be
Check
near
box.
you. Yeah, it was terrible. And so what do? I live by this philosophy that everything that it is measured can be improved. Or in order to improve it, you need to measure it, basically.
Yeah.
So I bought this exact Apple Watch. The only reason I bought this Apple Watch and I wear it is because I wanted to record my conversations with my daughter. So every time we would have a conversation, I would turn this on and would record it. And plus, if I'm recording, I also like have to be more intentional. So obviously, my conversations were better. At the end of the night, I would go and I would upload this to Dropbox. I would organize it, and that was the inspiration for Dad Smarter Not Harder. It was this idea of podcasting based on my conversations that I've had with my daughter throughout the day. It was a ton of editing. Oh my God, I was so tired. So tired. The first, I think, 20 episodes have that theme. The latter episodes, I'm no longer recording because it was just too much work. But that was like the general idea. So I wanted to improve and become a better father. And I read a lot of parenting books. I applied all that into my teachings. And then that's why I did Dad Smarter Not Harder. And why am I so intentional? I feel like again, it goes back to like, what is your purpose? And I feel one of my main purposes is just to be the best father that I can be and to raise exceptional children that can be the best that they can be as well. And I think, like, I honestly believe every parent should have a similar outlook, because the greatest responsibility in the world is to bring a child into this world, and now anybody can become a parent. Now you're responsible to bring this life up through the world.
Totally.
And I was talking to a friend, and she told me, I was talking to her about parenting, and she's like, yeah, don't worry about it too much. They'll be fine. And I was like, yeah, I guess if you have certain pillars, 2-parent household, they're going to be fine. Education, they're going to be fine. I think all that, but I want more for them. You might
That's the purpose.
I want more for them because I don't want them to just live through life, going back to the 9 to 5, just to find a 9 to 5 and just go through the routine. I want them to feel that purpose in their life and feel like they've accomplished something. And that would, for me, that would be the greatest accomplishment, for them to have found that. Everything else I do is like icing on the cake.
In my opinion, I think kids can't learn that if you as a parent don't set that example. That if you are showing up as a parent like, look, we're here, right? And you're not striving, you're not showing them, you're not on the 6:30 phone call with people, showing them what it means to be an entrepreneur working at 6:30 in the morning when no one else is, staying up late, just grinding, being intentional, making mistakes, trying to get better, working on your languaging, showing progress, then how can you expect that of them?
100%. So that's why, right, you have your gym at home. I have my gym at home too. And they see me working out on a Saturday morning, 6:30 a.m. And it's just normal. They'll wake up and they'll have their yoga mat and they'll like do jumping jacks. They'll just do
downward dogs.
And it's like, you know what? This is just life. So
this is life.
Something that I did from the very beginning was I used to read books on my Kindle. And like anybody, I was on my phone all the time. But once I had children, I was like, if I'm on my phone, it'll be when they're asleep. Mostly, right? Of course, like
during
I'll look.
The day
during the day, of course, I look at it, but I'm very intentional not to as much as possible. But what I do is actually everywhere I go, when I go to a restaurant with the children, when I go to the bathroom, I always have a book with me. No matter wherever I go. And it's become so natural for them that when they go to the bathroom now, there's like, they bring their book. When they go to the restaurant, they're bringing their book. When they go into the car, they're bringing their book. And it's like the book is just a natural extension of life. Like this is just what our family does. And so a lot of parents will ask,
I love that.
how can I get my child to love reading? It's like, do you read in front of your child? Does your child see you reading? Because if they don't see you reading, then they don't think we're a family that reads. Like honestly, my children now think, our family reads.
We read.
Yeah. That's what we do.
We consume knowledge.
We read. So again, like if you're on your phone, I don't want to judge people. Again, people have their own ways of parenting and everything. But if you're on your phone when hanging out with your child, even if like you're on your phone and they're reading, like in their mind, what are you setting the example?
I mean, the phone is my biggest failure, but it is the single one thing that causes me to not parent well too. So it's my own trap, right? It's like if I'm on my phone, I'm not focused, I'm not present, I'm just completely distracted. They see it, and then when we get triggered, when we're short, when we're irritable, it's because we were not there. We were distracted. We got triggered. We were impatient. Whatever, right? So
we're our own
definitely
worst enemies.
we're the worst enemy with
and
the phone.
like what you said, right? When do I get impatient? Is when I'm on my phone in the middle of something and they want my attention. I'm like, right? You keep going back. You might as well have not even
Touched it.
Yeah, touched it, because now you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. So I don't want to ask you what is a good parent and what is a good child. I don't want to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
But I think that through your journey, what can we do to be a better parent? Maybe give us some tips or things.
Yeah.
And how can we as parents not get so lost in the thoughts of this is a good child, this is a not good child? Like, almost the projecting our expectations on our kids.
That's so true. Okay. So
especially as a high performer,
right?
As somebody who's holding yourself at such a high standard.
I was listening to a podcast, and they started the podcast with, nobody wants to be Michael Jordan's son. Yes. Nobody wants to be Tom Brady's son, because you have all those expectations. So I get that.
Yeah.
So let's start off with what parents can do today. So I created this framework called the GRACE framework, GRACE. G stands for the growth mindset. Right? We talked a little bit about that. But that is the foundation of everything. The foundation is that your child needs to know that they can improve. Their intelligence is not fixed. So, I mean, it's super simple things, but practice makes better. Accidents are okay. All these things, right? And the example of Carol Dweck's book, The Growth Mindset, you may have talked about it, but just to remind the audience, the concept is they give an example that the father takes the daughter to a gymnastics competition. And in that gymnastics competition, the daughter competes and she loses. She doesn't win any medals. Now, the father may want to protect her ego. You know what? I think you were the best, actually. Oh, you did so well. Those judges,
they didn't understand.
They don't know what I see, right? And okay, you're letting your daughter feel good. You're saving herself. But all of a sudden, what are you teaching her? You're teaching her that everyone else is the problem. She is not responsible for her failures, or she's not even responsible for her successes, that her successes are dependent on some other people. So you don't want to do that, because that generates the fixed mindset. What you can do instead is tell the daughter, hey, you see all those people on that podium? Why are they there? I don't know. Well, they're there because they practice. They've been practicing for a lot longer than you. And if you practice just as hard as them, you could be there as well. And you teach them that the growth, right? That's the growth mindset. You teach them that they are responsible. They have the agency for their success. So that's G. So that's G.
I love it.
R, right, Grace. So R is responsibility. In my framework, it's like a little R, because we all try to give responsibility. It's not like a huge part of it, but you want to give responsibility to your children, give them chores. Right, this is easy stuff. We know we should be doing this. Clean up the table, wash the table, put away your toys. These are responsibility. Like, these are things you need to be doing. Okay, which leads, little R leads to A, autonomy. And so Micheline Doucleff wrote this book called Hunt, Gather, Parent. Fantastic book. Actually, my favorite parenting book. So if anybody wants to read one parenting book, Hunt, Gather, Parent.
Okay.
And she talks about what is the difference between independence and autonomy. Independence is a child who will ride their bike across the neighborhood, maybe go buy a soda, come back for dinner and eat. That's great. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Autonomous child is a child who will do the same thing but come back in time to set the table for dinner and maybe help serve. So this is a child that feels like they're contributing to the team. So ultimately, right, autonomy leads, you can teach that through teamwork. Our family does this. Our family reads.
Yeah.
Our family cooks together. Our family does this together. And so what does it lend itself to? Look, you and I go to birthday parties all the time. I love it. No, no judgment there. But it also leads itself to make your child a part of what you need to do. You need to go mail stuff. Well, we're all going to mail stuff together, right? We're doing these chores, these errands together. You know what I do? You're gonna love this. I bought this little shopping cart on Amazon. It's like $25, whatever it is. And now every Thursday, after I pick up the kids from school, we'll go to our supermarket, and we have a list of things. And it's the 6-year-old and the 4-year-old. They're like, okay, here you go. And then I go sit down and, right, I'll be reading my book. And I go sit down, and then they're responsible for going all around Whole Foods and picking out their own groceries. So that, imagine these two little kids.
Are you serious?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm 100% serious.
So you're not walking around with them?
No. They will do it independent. And not just this, autonomy, right? Not just this, but I have taught them, because there are many items that are too tall for them. So
how you have to ask somebody.
Exactly. So imagine what she's learning. They are learning
Totally.
that they can actually ask for help from somebody else as part of this exercise. So every Thursday you can find us at a supermarket.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So your 4 and 6-year-old are grocery shopping.
They're grocery shopping.
I think you're right. Like the skills of, and I'm working on my little one with this. Is like, how do you say hello to somebody?
Oh, exactly.
So like, how do you walk up to somebody, look them in the face, smile, shake their hand, make them feel like I'm actually here? It's because young toddlers are just like, they're so fast. They want to mow around. I don't want to say hi. And I think for me growing up, that was not the example. Like we had to sit and socialize.
I sat in the car.
Yeah.
Like my mom went to the grocery store, sit in the car.
I can't get my kids to sit still. And let alone like stop and say hello and engage and like really embrace somebody. So it's just like sometimes the basic things, but yeah, I think we have to learn how to live in a communal world where little kids can come up to that. Hey, do you mind helping me with this and grab 100%. This? What a skill.
What a skill.
Okay, so we're on A. Keep going.
We're on A. C is confidence or self-confidence. So why is C? C, I think, is so important because we live in a world where Instagram and TikTok and YouTube are a thing where you feel FOMO, fear of missing out. You feel like you need to be validated. When you send a picture out, you feel like you need to get those likes. So how can you build confidence, self-confidence in your children so they don't have to depend on the validation of others to feel smart or to feel pretty or to feel confident, all that. So there's a few things that we do. The one thing I want to talk about now is this idea of rising above others that may hate you or make fun of you. So what does that mean? That means that, I mean, no one, like they're so young, no one's really bullying each other.
Not yet.
But they're fighting amongst each other all the time at home. Okay. So Kimball may do something, my younger one, and Juniper may say like, "You're a poo-poo face," so they're like insulting each other, right? And then Kimball will be like, "No, you're a," and then they start fighting. So what have I been teaching at home? It sounds crazy. It honestly sounds crazy, but I teach them to say, "Okay, thanks." Just be indifferent about it. So if you get made fun of, it's like, "Okay, thanks." And so what we'll do is we'll practice. If they're still young enough, we'll all say, "Juniper, we're gonna practice."
I do the same thing.
"Juniper, you're ugly," and she has to say, "Okay, thanks." And then I go to Kimball and I say, "Kimball, you're a loser." "Okay, thanks." And they have to practice that. And what I'm trying to teach them is basically don't let somebody else interfere with your own emotions. And I mean, to be honest, I still have trouble controlling my own emotions. I wish I had practiced it as a kid, but that's what I want to do. They need to have not just self-confidence, self-control, so that if somebody insults them or anything, it could be anything, that they don't feel like their emotions are getting high and they lose that control.
Yeah, I love that.
Are you doing that?
Yeah.
Are you insulting your children?
No, I think we have to, like, one of the things that I really focus on is these things that we're talking about in terms of practicing.
Yeah.
So, okay, is it okay to make a mistake on this Kumon packet? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's practice. What is wrong?
Yeah.
Well, like, is this right? So, I think practicing, giving them the tools to like practice it over and over, creating those neural connections. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail. Yeah. It's okay for me to. One of the things that our kids do when they call each other poo-poo face is like, Simran just called me a poo-poo face. It's like, okay, are you a poo-poo face? Like, no, then let it go. You're not a poo-poo face. If she calls you that, does that make you a poo-poo face? Like, no. Like, okay, then let it go. Yeah. But it's just practicing. And giving and letting them also talk through it with you.
Yep.
What's E?
Oh, okay. Now we're on E. So E is empathy, and I feel that all of these build a foundation.
Yeah,
right?
I love it.
So the foundation is a growth mindset. Little R is you should be giving them chores. Okay. You can't have autonomy until you have the growth mindset and responsibility, because autonomy is really, I am good enough to do these things on my own. C, confidence, builds on all of that, because you cannot be self-confident until you know that you've accomplished these things. You feel responsible. You feel like you're a part of the team. And then the last one is E, is empathy, which is important for feeling for others. You can't feel for others and have that emotional attachment or understanding of others if you don't first have yourself under control. And that's why E comes last, which is empathy. And teaching empathy, I mean, it's a lot of hard work, but you can pepper it in, even with reading stories. How does she feel? Why does she feel that way? I mean, these are like basic things, but it works. Same thing when they're you called them poo-poo face. How do you think that made her feel?
Yeah.
Right. It's something that actually works a lot with Juniper, with her maturity. Now it's like something happened. Hey, how do you think that made Kimball feel? Oh, I think it made her feel sad. I'm like, oh, well, what can you do? And it's just the practice. Intentional practice. Like you were saying, you're doing this in Kumon and you're going back to it and you're paying attention. You can't do that if you're on your phone. You can't do that if you're distracted. So, right, we're our own worst enemy. My phone is, I think, way over there now so that I can be focused on us. And so we need to do these small things to make sure that we're not distracted and we can be there and present.
I have found storytelling that really works with me and my kids, especially like the girls love fantasy. They love unicorns and cupcakes but like they're just so attracted to stories and reading in a way that I really wasn't as a kid.
Yeah.
My mom put that in me and like really brought library books, buckets of library books. We're going to read all this. But like my kids are naturally like just fall in love with stories and really pick up those. So I've found that if there's an issue, what were we just going through recently? I think it was focus. I think there was something even through talking to her teachers about like improving their ability to stay present and focus on something. Is like instead of keep telling her you need to be better at focusing or getting rid of distractions because the world is not full of distractions. Is to like start reading stories where people are going through a journey where maybe focusing served them and non-focusing didn't. And it actually registers with them.
100%. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah, I love the story. Come on.
Okay, so we're trying to get my Kimball, the 4-year-old, to nap, right? And my wife all of us will be logical. Kimball, you need to nap because if you want to grow, then you have to nap. I don't want to nap. I'm tall enough. Like she'll say something.
I'm not a baby anymore.
I'm not a baby. Or, it's like, we don't necessarily do this, but I know many parents will use punishment. For example, if you don't nap, you don't get this, right? So it's like, oh, maybe you get like a short-term win, but it's a trap.
Yeah.
Okay, so what actually works? I tell Kimball a story. Kimball, once upon a time, literally I will be like, Kimball, once upon a time, there's this little girl who loved this ride in Legoland called the Dragon Ride. This is like an actual thing. And she was too small to ride the Dragon Ride. And then she's fully focused right now because that's her. Like she literally
she's identifying with that character.
Because we went to Legoland and she was too small to ride the ride. And her father told her you have to eat healthy, you have to exercise, and you have to sleep. And the little girl's like, no, I don't want to sleep. So what happened? She stayed small. She stayed little, and she couldn't ride the Dragon Ride. And she's like, no, Papi. She's just like, no. And she's like, well, what do you think she should do? She needs to nap. I'm like, oh, okay. And then she's like, Papi, I want a nap. And so you let them, it's like Inception. You let them figure it out. Because where parents fall into a trap is they want things done now.
Well, I want to hijack that because I think parenting is the most important job we all have. 100%. I think we could intellectually agree on that. It's the one job we probably abdicate the most.
Isn't it? Right.
I don't want to say that parenting is hard, but it takes a level of intention and focus that most don't want to really deploy. How can we get better at that?
It's not just, I do think it's hard. So I will say parenting is hard. It does take a level of intention, but think about this. So much of our lives is geared towards instant gratification. Playing video games, we get to the next level, right? We can eat. We go to the grocery store, we get all the junk food we want. If you're unsatisfied sexually, you can watch pornography. If you're feeling down, you can drink alcohol, you can smoke weed, whatever it is. Instant gratification everywhere. With children, that's like the most delayed gratification thing in the world. Yeah. It's going to take them 18 years to become an adult, right? Like even longer to develop their frontal lobe, right? 25 years. It is such a headache because all these things that I'm teaching or that we've talked about may not work on day 1, may not work on day 2, week 1, week 2. It may take months.
Year 30.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 30 finally. And if they're flourishing. That's the difficulty is that so many of us want instant gratification. So how do you get?
How can we enjoy that then more?
Enjoy the process, right?
Yeah, let's maybe turn it into a game, right? Like create that joy of what are we teaching every single day, or what do we want them to learn every single day?
That's part of Octalis' primary. How can we use gamification to improve our lives? So we teach Yu-Kai Chao, who's the creator of it. We teach left brain and right brain core drives. Left brain are more extrinsic, right brain are more intrinsic. And so there's two parts to this, right? So if you yourself find yourself being more extrinsically motivated, you can absolutely, I'm not recommending this, but let's just say off the top of my head, you can have extrinsic rewards. Let's say if you have a problem with your temper and you go a day without yelling at your kids, just an example, you can have some kind of extrinsic reward. Then tonight I will, eat a chocolate, whatever it is. But you can train yourself in that sense to kind of do that, and that
even
is
as
like
a parent, we can work on this.
Yeah, exactly. And you have these extrinsic rewards. Now, intrinsic motivation is much better, right? That's the difference between learning to love reading because. Like core drive 5 is social influence and relatedness, the 8 core drives of Octalis. So core drive 5 is our family reads. Like this is who we are. That's core drive 1 and core drive 5 and core drive 1. Core drive 1 is epic meaning and calling. Epic meaning and calling is like things like religion. Like this is my purpose in life. Like why do you do this? It's like, well, this is what my religion teaches. This is who I am. So 1 and 5 combination is something like my family reads, and that's who I am. I am a reader. That's where you want to be. Of course, you can also, I've seen some people on Twitter talk about how, if my child reads a book, I give them $1. And it accomplishes certain things, but ultimately what will end up happening is you're reinforcing through extrinsic motivation, and that means if you take it away, if one day you don't give $1, then I'll be like, I don't want to read anymore because I was only reading it for the $1. Is one better than the other? I will argue that intrinsic motivation is in the long term better. The challenge is that it's harder in the short run, right? Yeah. To get them to do something immediately is very difficult, and that's why we'll tend to do things like punishment, which is core drive 8, loss and avoidance, right? You don't want to be punished, so you will avoid that, and that's something that you will act on immediately, essentially.
Good stuff. What are you struggling with as a parent?
So many things.
Pick one.
So many things.
What are you struggling in this specific season?
I'm gonna talk about what I struggled last season, and then I'll talk about what I'm talking about struggling this season. Because I think this season is interesting because I think a lot of people will struggle with it. I was struggling with my wife, so with Kim.
Last season or this season?
Last season. We're a lot better now, and that's on me. So last season, yeah. So my previous struggle was not necessarily with my children. I think that's been continually improving, but I was struggling with my wife in that I was spending so much time focused on the children, which is a good thing. But again, you don't want to spend so much time where you're neglecting somebody else, somebody who's your equal partner in this. Spending so much time on my startup, raising money, hiring engineers, all these things, and I didn't allocate the time to my wife. Now, how do you rectify that? I mean, what was the biggest thing? I mean, it was so many things that compound, but there's a few things that immediately off the bat helped. One, it's so basic. On Friday nights, not every Friday night, but pretty continuously, or I made it a routine. I would hire a babysitter, and I would take my wife out to dinner, just her and I. Right? I mean, it's such
date night.
It's a date night. I mean, it sounds so simple. Oh, duh, right? You should be doing that. But how many of us actually intentionally take the time to do it?
Yep. Such a key component.
It is. And I wasn't doing it. And I expect many people listening to this, maybe I should do that. I haven't been doing it. Okay, so that's...
low-hanging fruit.
Oh, but that's like the lowest hanging fruit, right? Like, you got to go for it.
Spend time it out. Right.
Okay, the second is give your wife the space that she needs on her own time as well. So what do I mean by that? It's oftentimes I mean, again, we're talking about my faults. I would at times make her feel guilty if she was doing something on her own. So like doing her nails. I was like, why do you do it on the weekends? Why don't you just do it during the weekdays when the girls are in school? Like, why do you have to do it? The weekends are our time. So,
because she wanted to get away.
Exactly, yeah. You don't have to, but yeah.
I don't need to remind you.
100%. So, hey, on Saturdays, on Sundays, whenever she needs to do her hair, she needs to get a massage, she needs to do whatever she needs. Saturday mornings, she needs to work out.
Makes sense.
It's making her feel like I am encouraging and not, of course, not even making her feel even the slightest bit guilty for those things. Those things seem small and it seemed like low-hanging fruit, but they help the relationship so much because I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at her as somebody
typical entrepreneur, right? Like,
yeah.
Focus on what, and we often neglect our kids. We often neglect our wife. We often neglect those relationships that are the closest to us. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy journey.
It's not.
Thank you for sharing.
No, absolutely.
What's the issue now?
The issue.
It's like whack-a-mole. You solved that one.
Well, no, my wife and I are fantastic.
Amazing. Good.
Really good. And really, she didn't change anything.
Yeah. It's all self-ownership.
It's all of it. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, if you're in an unhappy relationship, if your wife is unhappy, look in the mirror. Like, you really have to look yourself in the mirror. It's like, are you treating your wife the same way you're treating your startup or your business or your children? Because she needs the love and care as well. Like, so we take it for granted. Hey, we're in this together. We're already married. Why do I have to put all that intention? No, but you do. You have to do it as well. This season, I you know what? I feel very good that I'm on a high point. The product is going to launch in January. We just hired 3 engineers, and we worked really hard to get these 3 engineers. They're really good on board, and we got them. We have a designer that's been with us for a long time. Business is going well. Children are doing well. I would say, you know what maybe we'll find something where we disagree and we can debate on it. What am I teaching my daughters? What are you teaching your daughters? And what I mean by this is, I'm going to give you a example. When I worked at a big technology company, right, like the biggest technology company, the director told me the director was increasing in promotions left and right, and she also had 2 kids similar age to mine. And I asked her, how do you do it? How are you able to spend so much time at work and spend so much time at work and elevate while raising 2 children? And she tells me, I'll be honest, I don't see my kids during the week. I'm like, wow, you don't see your kids during the week? No, I see, but I do focus on them on the weekends. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's one example. The second example is another director. So these are both women, and we're going to be 2 guys talking about women, and I think that's okay. But let's continue. Another director at a startup. She grows up. That startup exits, has an IPO. She's in her now 40s, maybe almost 50s. No children, and I haven't talked to her since then. And I asked myself, this is a genuine question. I asked myself, and I'm going to ask you. What do you want for your daughters? Do you want for them that level of success where you have to sacrifice your family? Like, is that what it takes? That you have to sacrifice kids in order to become a VP of a company that IPOs and you have this financial success, notoriety, power? Or, right, that's one end of the spectrum. What's the other end of the spectrum? A stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife, which 100%, I think it is should be respected. It is one of the hardest things to do. 100%. I'm not putting anybody down on the spectrum. But I ask you, when you raise your child, what expectations or what are you teaching them?
Yeah, this is a really good topic.
This is really good. I've been thinking about it. So you asked me, this is what I'm thinking about.
So I feel like, just to give people a little bit of a window into my life is, I think generally life should be, you have to live life from a place of ownership. So what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I am in control of? Kind of going back to the girl on the train. I want to be able to live the richest, most free life that I can. Mm-hmm. And that means that every step of the way, I have to take ownership of my own life. And I'm really blessed to be able to chase a lot of big dreams, do all kinds of fun things. I have to travel a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm blessed that I have the fortune to have a spouse that aligns with me on that and is willing to perhaps not do, actually, she doesn't work in a conventional way, which allows her to stay focused on the kids.
100%.
And so that is it perhaps sounds like a trade-off for some people, but actually for us, it's a choice because we want her to instill culture, values, time, running around and doing all the Kumon and the soccer and the swimming is a part of their childhood I want. And in order for us to have that, somebody's got to do it, right? Yes. Could be a nanny, but we don't want it to be a nanny. It's got to be one of us. She's holding that baton. Now, does that mean that she's somehow sacrificing something? Maybe.
Yeah.
But we don't look at it that way. We look at it like that's our, my dad told me once that his dad said that you're my principal, but my grandson, he's my interest.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, my kids are an investment. They're an investment. And so do we want that investment to be harvested by someone else? Right? And so what are we having to give up? So now our kids are a little bit older. So Sejal now is back to like, okay, let me get into something, but I don't want her to go get a 9-to-5. So now she's trying to figure out, how do I be an entrepreneur so I can have the same flexibilities and freedoms I want to take care of the kids, to be home, to leave, go on vacation when we want to, and not be stuck to a 9-to-5 or a schedule or PTO or whatever. And earn money and have value and feel contributing and all those kinds of things. So I think, what do I really want for my kids? I want my kids to feel like they're in control of their life. They have this strong aptitude to constantly want to learn and grow. And challenge themselves and make mistakes. I see a lot of the things in me that I'm not proud of in myself. Like, they're great mirrors, right? I want them to be better listeners. I want them to be better communicators. I want them, and I'm practicing that. On I'm on stage practicing that for them. Podcasting has given me the tools to learn how to be a better question asker or a better listener. I want them to be having this constant curiosity of life. And we have to show that you don't have to just stay in one lane. So by doing different things and experimenting and trying things or going places, you're showing them that you can be exposed and be curious on all these, meeting different people. What are you talking about? Why are you talking about that? Where are you going there? Why are you doing that? So that's what I want them to learn. And ultimately, being CEO of a company, growing some corporate ladder, like that for me, from my childhood, that was never success. Definitely, probably the frameworks of success of having money, having things, having wealth was probably more than sort of corporate ladders, because I didn't see that growing up. But, to me, like, do I want them to be financially successful? Yes, I do. Because I think that you have more influence when you do that. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to sell out to things that, or sacrifice things that, we're talking about back to priorities is, what are your priorities? If your priorities are your kids, then find a way to be those things, successful, have a great marriage, and also create, which is why I admire you so much, is like really setting those things as priority. Other things will figure themselves out. If your career and your money is a priority, and perhaps your kids are not, then it's okay. Focus on that. Just know that there's a consequence to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean, right? I think our generation was brought up in a way where you have to make money, make a lot of money. You have to climb the ladder. It was
definitely a program.
And then even I'm going to say this, understanding I'm not a woman, right? And so I want to preface that.
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
That's really important.
And it's that women should be independent, right? You should be independent. You should make your own money. You should be a girl boss.
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay, it's good. So let's talk about that because that's how I feel my peers have been raised, and I have many people that I've worked with that will, like you said, abdicate child care because they want to spend more time at work.
Maybe this is controversial, but I think we can't forget that women have a certain instinct that men don't have.
Let's talk about it.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that just because, I have two girls just like you. I want my girls to be strong and independent and brave and successful. Of course I do. But I don't want them to just chase some narrative of what that means in a worldly sense without sitting back and like, well, wait a second. The reason why we got here is because your grandma raised us. Because they taught us the traditions of what it means to be Indian or have good family values or live in integrity or learn how to feed people, learn how to make people feel welcome. Respect family, respect friends, build trust, build community. Those things happen in the house.
Yes.
They happened because we saw women set that example, pour into those generations. And so, again, it's a trade-off. it's like, what are you competing for? Right?
Yeah.
If I want to I want to be independent. I want to go be, if he can be CEO, she can be CEO. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
But is that trade-off worth it?
Yep.
For me, if my wife said, hey, listen, I really want to go run a company, I say, go. I'll stay at home. I'll be the one who finds a job maybe that I can work from home and instill those values. Because I think we have, we're talking about men and women, but like, I just feel like this component of lifestyle design is so critical.
But let me ask you this. I'm going to push back just a little bit there in that I think you and your wife, right, Sage, complement each other very well. I think my wife and I complement each other very, very well. And it's great that you say, if she says that, then you would maybe take a step back. But I think you have chosen each other and you work so well because you are the one who's running as CEO and she is complementing that.
Absolutely.
And I mean that in a very complimentary sense.
I agree.
Yeah. Right. It's like because you're complimenting and you're not forcing, like you don't have to, like you would have to force yourself to kind of like step back and it's like, okay, I'm not going to maybe spend as much time at work. Like
it's a huge
love
blessing.
It. Yeah, exactly.
It's huge. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine. Sometimes us as entrepreneurs, we get frustrated because we're pushing, we have employees surrounding. We come home and we get frustrated with our spouses.
Oh my God. Yes.
That why are you not productive? Why are you not pushing? Why are you not ambitious? Why are you not getting that done? Why are you not getting done?
Yeah.
But when you step back, the beauty of the relationship is that there's such a different harmony that is happening. The energy from that female, and it could be different. I'm saying it from in our perspective, but she's bringing such a different value to the relationship. If she brought the productivity, the high drive, it probably wouldn't work.
It probably wouldn't work. No. Well, our biggest fights was when I would tell Kim, you're being so unproductive. Like, look at all this time that you have. You could be learning another language. You could be doing this. And she's like, just let me be. I want to watch this show on Netflix. What are you talking about? And we had fights like that. And it's not until I have changed my mentality. I'm going to add one more thing to this.
Yes.
I have a close friend who is switching it up. It's basically they're both working a corporate job, the husband and wife, and they have 2 kids, similar age to ours. And it is the husband that's taking a step back and going to take a sabbatical, maybe a couple years, which is wonderful. I mean, to be honest, I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. But I 100% support what he's doing. But something that he said was interesting. I asked him, why do you want this? Like, oh, I want somebody else to, somebody in the household to be focused on the children. It's very important to me. I'm like, oh, have you talked to your wife about this? Like, would she be willing to do it? And he said, my wife said to me that she wants to set a good example for the children. She doesn't want to be a stay-at-home wife. She wants to be girl boss. She wants to continue climbing the ladder, and she wants to be that example.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to reflect any judgment on their family.
I don't think there's a right or wrong.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I will say this. That is an example of our generational upbringing that has looked down upon our parents who stayed at home. When now, as a parent, I see that as the most noble, if you want to call it a sacrifice, the most noble sacrifice. And 100% hard work.
Agree.
And I've told Kim, maybe jokingly, I'm like, hey, maybe I'll stay at home and you go work, you continue. I might be like, I might get antsy at home. But ultimately, I do think it is important for somebody. Right, you have responsibilities. Somebody's going out there and hunting the lions, hunting the lion and bringing it back home so that we can eat, and somebody's taking care of the household and the family, and you have those responsibilities in the household.
I think that the reality of middle America is that it also is really hard today. It's more expensive. Salaries, wages haven't increased at the rate of cost of living. We're recording this. If you're listening to this years from now, it's like we're recording this where housing is more expensive than it's ever been. Cost of money is more expensive. Cars, food, blah blah blah, and energy is getting cheaper generally, right? Like it does kind of offset, but it's an expensive time to live in a certain way. We as Americans love to spend money, right? We don't know how to cut expenditures, so. You need 2 household incomes, and the spending that we have in our lifestyles need that. And so that's also a really good way for people to validate, like, oh no, I can't stay home. I we need that extra
keep up my
income.
lifestyle. Yeah,
we need to keep up our lifestyle. So I think it's a choice. Like we have to decide.
Well, it is a choice, and I like what you've done and we have done to a certain extent. It's like generational living, where we kind of like as a family unit, we can lift each other up.
Yeah.
Because if we're whatever it is, however you can cut costs or make things work a little bit better, then you can go make that extra mile work. And what do you want? Like the most valuable resource of all, everyone's going to tell you, is time.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be your time. So is your time spent at work or is your time spent with the children? I will say though, I think in America we waste a lot of time. And I'm not saying that if you're watching Disney Plus or whatever, that's wasted time. What I mean by wasted time is that it's not intentional. That if you want to sit down and you want to enjoy this movie with your wife, come on, by all means do it, right? But that is something that you want to plan and do intentionally. But you shouldn't be walking around just looking at Instagram or whatever else all day, being distracted. And so that's why I feel we do have a lot of wasted time. Totally. And we need
guilty as charged.
Guilty, all of us guilty as charged. And it's never been easier in any time in human history to learn a new skill or to have resources at your fingertips. I wanted to talk to you about this. Like, will my children go to college? And my philosophy is you can learn everything online. You can seek out mentorship online. You can do anything online. And my philosophy right now is that to spend 4 years and to go into debt, to go to college, and then to go out of college and try to get some $80K a year job, you're just, it's not worth the 4 years and the loans.
Yeah.
So
the return on capital is just not there.
Exactly. So you mentioned you want them to be maybe entrepreneurs, maybe thought leaders, build their own brand, build their own business. I want to do the same for my children, and basically the point is, you're right. People think they need a two household income, but I mean, there's many ways. If you can, right? If you really are intentional, you talk to your spouse and you want to make it done. You cut costs and you figure out how can you get to the next level of your income by not just trading your hours for money, but building something that can help you prosper.
I love it. We could talk forever.
I think we can.
Let me wrap up here.
Okay.
For you, what do you hope? You didn't say this, but what do you hope that when they graduate from college that they have learned that says, I learned this from my dad?
Well, I don't think they will go to college.
Okay, well, whatever. When they're 18 and they're whatever that milestone is, and they're journaling or they're talking to somebody. Yeah. I finished high school.
Yeah. Well, what are they journaling?
What are they saying? Okay, what are they saying that I learned this from my dad?
Okay. I wanted to say something like very poetic.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna be. It's not gonna be poetic at all. Okay.
We'll put some charming music in the background when
it's not poetic. And I'm actively teaching this to my daughters. They're half listening when I'm teaching this. But if you've read Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, it talks about the hedgehog concept. Yep. Right. So there is the personal hedgehog concept. This is what I'm teaching my children. Literally, I talk to them about this, and I think halfway through they'll just tune me out completely. But that's fine.
That's okay.
It's okay. The personal hedgehog concept. You have to find the intersection of 3 circles. The first one is, what do you love to do? The second one is, what are you the best in the world at? And the third one is, how can you make money? And I talk to this about maybe like once a week. I hope they're not tired of it, but they're going to hear it from me once a week. Those 3 things. Because if you just find something where you can make money and you're the best in the world at it, but you don't love it, like maybe you hate it, that's a job.
It's like ikigai.
Yeah, it's basically a job, right?
Yeah.
You're good at it, you make money, you don't like it, it's called a job, right? If you find something where you can make money, you love to do, but you suck at it, right? You're not the best in the world, that's a dream, right? Like, I would love to be an NBA basketball player. I love basketball. I'm sure I can make a lot of money doing it, but they suck. I'm not that good, So that's my dream, right? If you're really good at it, if you love to do it, but you can't make money, that's just a hobby.
So by the time they're 18, really learn that's the framework of life. Find that, search for that.
Exactly. Like, if they haven't found it by then, which I doubt they will, it takes time.
Of course.
I want them to know, right, that's basically your purpose. Like, why are you here on this earth? This is my purpose, and this is my framework to find it. I'm really good at this. And I really love it, and I can figure out how to make money. If they find that, I think I'm accomplished. I will be very happy as a parent.
If people want to reach out to you, if people want to read or listen more, I mean, shout out the podcast. Tell us where we can connect.
Shout it out. Yeah, you can check me out. Dad Smarter Not Harder. It's on YouTube. It's on Apple, Android, whatever it is. I'm on Twitter at Jun Loayza. You can hit me up. Talk to me whenever you want. And soon in January, you'll be able to reach out to me in a new way. But to be continued.
To be continued. We'll have to record in January. And for you, Jun, what does it mean to live a rich life?
Oh, well, yeah. Going back to it, I think it's the theme of today. It's living with purpose. I was telling my wife this. I love to talk to these things about my wife. I think she's tired of it. But there's a celebrity, something Jenner. I don't know all the celebrities, but there's a celebrity, she's a multi-billionaire, right? But she's gone through divorces. She has, I think, children through several husbands. Again, I don't want to judge people, but I told her, for our children, many people idolize her. Wow, she's so famous. She has so much money. She has so much power. Great, absolutely.
Have all those things. No problem.
But how's your personal life? How are your children? How much time
are you at peace?
Are you at peace with this? And I go back to this. If her purpose in life though was to accomplish all that, then I think she is accomplished. And maybe her purpose in life wasn't to raise her children in a certain manner. Like they have money, they will never be in poverty, and they'll be well off. And she feels happy with that.
Yeah,
then she has found her purpose. But that is what the theme of today is finding your purpose. Personal hedgehog concept, and it's not just for yourself, but for your children.
Love it, man. Thanks so much for recording with me today.
Great. No, this is great.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Fun.
I loved it in person.
Thanks.